So let's take a look at one of the other types of diet dogmas that are out there. Once again, full complete book will be coming out soon. When we start looking at diet dogmas, we start looking at the various diets that we tend to follow. A lot of them fall along the lines of being fads, where we tend to have a lot of marketing that goes into play, but not a lot of science that goes into play. Very few of the diets that we look at have scientific evidence to support their use, where there tends to be a lot of confirmational bias goes into play and a lot of selective attention to very few studies that independently show some level of significance. Within this, we have types of diets, such as the plant-based diet, where the question is, should I be vegetarian or should I be vegan? Well, we have to take a step back and look at, is the hype worth, or is it just a scam? So let's talk about that.
Warning. The following presentation contains information that might contradict what you have previously heard, or believed to be true, about how the human body works, and contains material that is not suitable for closed-minded individuals. Enjoy!
And so we start looking at the idea about a plant-based diet. We have to start by looking at some definitions. So a vegetarian is simply a person that's going to eat things that do not contain animal meat. Within this, we have different types of vegetarians. We have lacto-vegetarians, which will consume things like milk. We have ovo-vegetarians, which will consume things like eggs. We have lacto-ovo-vegetarians, which will consume both milk and eggs. But then we have very strict vegetarians such as vegans. So the big difference between the vegan and the classifications of the vegetarians is, will they consume things that come about from animal byproducts, or will they only consume plant-based materials? Where a vegetarian will be allowed within their dietary dogma to consume things like honey, whereas a vegan will not. The premise behind most of these vegetarian style diets is that consuming plant-based is better and healthier for you than what we have attributed to as a Western-based diet, a fast food-based diet. But that's not just the case, because there are a whole bunch of various types of foods that we can consume at fast food restaurants that would be classified as being a vegetarian or as a vegan option. So what does the science say? What do we know about vegetarian and about vegan diets as it relates to the ability to control metabolic health related to weight loss? Because most of the people are going to be following dietary dogmas either to regulate body weight or regulate metabolic health. And so what do we know? Well, there is some correlations that indicate that following a vegetarian or a vegan diet will lead to changes in neuronal health by increasing insulin sensitivity, reducing reactive oxidative species, and reducing neuroinflammation within the central nervous system. There is some evidence through correlations to indicate there's an increase in metabolic flexibility, an increase in insulin sensitivity, and a change in myokine signaling within the skeletal muscle. There is some correlations that indicate there is a reduction in atherosclerosis and a reduction in inflammation through controlling of C-reactive protein. There is indications of an increase in insulin sensitivity, an increase in lipolysis, and a decrease in lipogenesis within adipose tissue, leading to changes in adipokine signaling and changes in macrophage activation that lead to the reduction in inflammation that we see within the body. Stemming away from the pancreas, we tend to get a normalization of insulin and glucagon signaling. From the liver, there tends to be an increase in insulin sensitivity, a reduction in lipogenesis, and a reduction in the non-alcoholic fatty acid liver syndromes when someone tends to move from an animal-based diet to a plant-based diet and suffers from overfatness. There tends to be a change in hormonal signaling coming away from the liver, very similar to the same changes that we see in hormonal signaling coming away from the adipose tissue, as well as from the skeletal muscle. So it seems to be like there's a lot of benefits that come away from following a plant-based diet. But does that automatically mean a healthier food? And this is where we have to look at what's the research say. We have a whole lot of correlations that say there are good benefits that come away from following a vegetarian diet. However, there are equal numbers of studies that indicate that following a vegetarian or a vegan diet may have some cost to go with the benefits that are attributed to it. So what are the things that get pointed out within the research that we have to worry about? Well, we have to worry about things like deficiencies. Deficiencies are going to be coming about from things that we would normally get from animals in our diet or from supplements that would come from animal products, such as B12 and vitamin D. A host of ions that we have to worry about that will be consumed in lower concentrations, where we may be able to get a within normal recommended amount within the diet. However, because of other things that are contained within plants that we're consuming, may impact the bioavailability of these ions. We will also lose out on some omega-3 fatty acids, such as ELA and DHA, as well as essential amino acids, as well as taurine and creatine, that we get from high concentrations in animal products or consumption by supplementations, which may be missed based on the strictness of the vegetarian diet that we're trying to follow. We will also have a disruption in our psychological drive for food based off of reward center signaling that can come about. We also have to worry about things like the anti-nutrients or the misconception that vegan and vegetarian diets are coming about from non-processed foods. We have to worry about the anti-nutrients such as lectin, oxalates, phytates, phytosterols, tannins, and glucosinolates, which all impact the bioavailability of vitamins and minerals within the diet that can impact our overall metabolism. And how is it going to impact our overall metabolism? Well, and how are these things going to impact? It's going to impact based off of metabolic disruption, where the metabolic disruption is going to change the way in which we're going to look at our food intake, change inflammatory signaling, change leptin and insulin signaling, change growth signaling, all leading to issues that we typically look at coming away from metabolic syndrome and overfatness. This is what we have to remember. Just because we might be following a vegan or vegetarian diet does not mean that we're not also having the possibility of consuming metabolic or endocrine disruptors within the plant-based materials. So what can we say? What's the take-home message? Well, just like with many of the other dietary dogmas, we have to be careful with following the strictness to any of the dietary protocols. Well, thanks for listening. Hopefully got a little bit out of the talk here. Remember, more will be coming with the full text. Make sure you are liking and subscribing to the publications. Make sure you're sharing out with what we're doing. And following along on all of the various platforms that we're publishing on.